Welcome to episode 22 of the Feed You podcast.
Welcome to the Feed You podcast, giving you the real scoop on raising your business to new heights. Expert education, inspiration, and motivation to fuel your purpose, your passion, and your profits. Here's your host, Elisa Connor.
Hello. Welcome to the Feed You podcast. I'm Elisa Connor and I'm your host. And let me be the first to welcome you to the month of February. This is the first Wednesday of February, and I don't know if January was anything for you like it was for me, but I am really glad that it is over. I had really high intentions of the way that month was going to go, and it did not go that way. So I am super excited to get February off to a new start, and I almost feel like it's my second chance at starting the new year. If you have a business like mine where you're really busy at the end of the year, it can be a time for you to reflect, and you can't always in 2 days figure out what you want to do for the year. And I don't know about you, but I run myself ragged all the month of December, and then by January my body is like, enough. So anyway, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad it's February, and I'm really glad you are joining me. Today's episode, we are going to dig into one of my favorite subjects, which is color and your brand, and how that is or should be thought out in regards to your ideal client. A lot of times I work with people, and I'm sure you have been guilty of this. I know I've been guilty of it, where I will pick a color because it's my favorite color, and that is not necessarily the best color for you to use to attract your ideal client. It may not resonate with them. It may actually just turn them off or confuse them about, who you are and what you do. So I wanted to give you some tips and tricks around color and color psychology and how to pick the colors that are going to work best for you and work best for your brand. I always like to do a little research on statistics before I get into the meat of the discussion. So I wanted to give you guys some shopping and color statistics. And the first one I came across was that this was shocking to me. 93% of shoppers make a purchase decision based on color and their visual experience. 93%. So if you have a visually unappealing website, business card, color palette, font palette that you are trying to get in front of people and they don't like it, you have lost their business immediately. Unless it's one of the 7% that's living in a pipe dream or a cloud and they don't see the colors or whatever, but that's a pretty huge percentage. So worth some discussion to talk about what that looks like and how to make sure that it is working for you and your business. 85% of those 93 base their buying decision solely on color. Your color has to speak to your audience, and it has to be relatable to your product. And I had an example that came up in my mind when I was putting this together is you wouldn't use pink to sell a hamburger. That would be the opposite of a color that you'd want to use to sell a hamburger, because most people know that a pink hamburger is not one you would want to eat because it hasn't been cooked all the way through. So you want to leave those two more. Pink would be a great color for a business that is female centered and maybe more in the fashion or wellness area or something like that. Big brands like McDonald's and Starbucks and all of these other really, really big successful companies will actually bring in specialists to do studies around which colors will be most identified with when it comes to their target and ideal audience. So think about that. You may love pink and you may love bright pink or light pink or whatever, but if you're going after businessmen with your business and you're trying to sell them insurance, then that is probably not a good color choice for you. And so the last one I had for a statistic was that color increases the recognition of your brand by 80%. So if you have the right color that is associated well with your product, you are 80% more likely to be memorable to your ideal client. So color really has a big impact on how people not only choose whether or not to purchase from you, but also whether or not they remember you in their time of need, because not every person you run across in the moment is going to be ready for your product or service. But that doesn't mean that, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, however far down the road, they won't be ready. And so if you can become that memorable brand to them so that when they're ready to purchase, they think of you immediately, that is a great way and a very easy way for you to stay top of mind. So that being said, there's a lot behind color psychology, and I could probably talk color psychology for a really long time, but I just want to touch on it a little bit because it can get a little dry, and I don't want to go on and on a podcast about it. If you want to know more about it, that is something that I cover in my profitable branding course, and I go into depth on that and talk pretty deeply about color psychology and how to choose the colors. So if you want some more information about that, you can find that on my website. But I did want to talk about color psychology and how color can impact not only your brand, but the arena in which you play for your business. So let's get into color psychology, and let's just start with cool and warm colors. So cool colors very easily translate into a more calming effect. They're your blues and your greens and all of the shades that come in that blue-green color palette. So teal and the lighter blues and dark, any of the blues and greens. And then the warmer colors tend to add excitement and entice action. So those would be your reds, your oranges, and your yellows. And those are the colors that you see most often in people in brands where quick decisions are made. So McDonald's, Wendy's, anything that is going to incite a really quick decision-making process. They're going to see that red and yellow in almost every one of those logos, or at least one of those colors in those logos and related to that brand. That being said, the reds, the orange, the black, and even royal blue sometimes is used for impulse shoppers. So fast food, any kind of outlet mall, and also clearance. If you see clearance signs, they almost always have those colors on them. When you're at Target even, their signs are red, and they have, the big clearance sign. They're usually red and yellow. So it draws attention to it. It helps buyers realize that this is a markdown and be aware of it. Even their sale signs are red and white. So those are the colors you're looking for if you're in a fast decision-making business. If you have a higher priced offering and it takes some, I don't want to say convincing, but it takes a little bit more thought and preparation for people to make a decision around doing business with you, you wouldn't want to use those colors because it's going to make them anxious, and it'll most likely turn them the other direction, and they won't want to purchase from you. So let's look at a couple of the other colors. So moving into more of the cool color tones, if you're looking at like a navy or a teal, those have been known to appeal to shoppers that are on a budget, that are looking for more of a normal priced product or service. A lot of banks, they offer security. So a lot of banks and larger department stores will utilize those colors. Ironically, I'm thinking of Wells Fargo at the moment, and their colors are red and yellow. And so it's interesting as a bank that they would choose those colors because those would incite action and would kind of make people uneasy. You see a lot of around here, I'm thinking about 2 or 3 different banks that actually use those. But if you're looking at like a Chase Bank or Citibank, they both use that really nice navy blue. Calming effect. We've got you taken care of. You'll be secure with us. So it's very interesting how that's played out. And if you look at the story of, how that's played out as far as their business growth, that would be a very interesting study compare how those two have grown and evolved, and which color palette worked best for them. So not to get too into it, but then the last study component that was in this study that I looked at talks about traditional buyers. And that would be for things like clothing stores. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head, other more traditional stores. But they are more attracted to the colors of like pink and sky blue and rose. So those pastel-y colors. Without necessarily having too much energy flying at them with the reds and the yellows and all that stuff. And I'm just, the one that comes to mind right now is Gap. I mean, Gap uses that very nice blue. It is, I would say it's almost more like a navy blue. But again, the Gap is known to be dependable. They've been there a long time. They have good products. So they're going for that feel of reliable, dependable, and you can count on us. But that's a little bit about color psychology. If you want to know more about that, there's tons of information out there on the internet, but just some things to give you some insights into picking your own colors. I also had an article that I pulled up that, talks a lot about all of the different, I just talked about the main color groups, but just to go through some of the characteristics that are typically associated with different colors. So red, for example, is usually associated with passion and vitality and excitement. And also, it also incites action. We talked about that. Orange is very optimistic and warm and cheerful. Yellow is fun and humorous and energetic, and usually is associated with kids or kind of that energy that kids have, that fun and exciting energy. Purple is almost always associated with luxury and imagination and playfulness and new ways of thinking of things. Purple, what comes to mind for me is, off the top of my head, is that Purple mattress company. And it's fun and it's new and it's interesting and it has a luxurious product, but also very imaginative, very different, very outside the box. Blue, we talked about, incites trust and serenity and also strength and character. I gave you some examples of blue, but also green is associated with growth and healing and freshness, and a lot of times with environmental products. You see that all the time. And brown, obviously, is associated with nature. There's a lot of brown in nature, and comfort and stability. And if you have a lot of brown in your brand, you're wanting to allow people to connect to nature and allow people to feel more comfortable in their ability to move forward using your product. And you're coming across as stable. White and black, which are actually not colors, but utilized as colors. White represents balance and neutrality and calm. And so almost always you will have designers utilize white space for those three reasons. It will create balance on the page. If you don't have enough white space, your eyeball doesn't know where to look, and there's no neutral ground, and it feels very busy, and it's hard to achieve calmness without that white space. And if you don't have the calmness, people can't make a decision. They can't determine whether or not they want to do business with you, because you haven't given them the opportunity to kind of rest in that decision-making process, whether it's physically rest or let their eyeballs rest. And then black, on the other hand, is known for formality and power and sophistication. And so you'll see black and white and even silver in some of the more luxury brands, Rolls-Royce and even Apple. Apple uses white and silver. But really simple design is what you'll see for those higher end companies. And so think about that. You don't want to have an inundation of color if you have a very luxurious brand, because it's not going to be received well. So that being said, I wanted to give you some steps to start picking your own colors. And I know a lot of people get stuck on this and they're like, I don't know what colors to pick, and maybe I have one color I like, but then I can't figure out what other colors to put with it. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. The first step in this process that I take my clients through is you need to go and gather some inspiration. And there is no better place to gather inspiration than on the web. You can do Google searches, you can utilize Pinterest, you can go outside and get inspiration. If you have photos, favorite photos that you've taken, or that you maybe have as screensavers, utilize those as a color palette and build from there. There are a lot of tools out there that enable you to pinpoint the colors that you have in a photo, where you can just use an eyeball dropper and point to the color that you want to utilize, and then you can actually get the color code for that color so you can add it to your color palette. So gather some inspiration. If you have photos, do that. One of my favorite ways to do it, and one of the ways that I have my clients do it, is to create a board on Pinterest and just go start pinning items that you really like, that associate with your personality and with the people that you're trying to attract. And there may be some overlap. There may be some colors that are just out there that you're like, oh, I just really like that, but it's not a genuine pattern that's showing up, but that's okay. Just go pin them anyway, and then kind of look at them and see what colors continue to show up. And when you do that, you'll see, you have 3, 4, maybe 5 colors that consistently show up in the images that you pick. That being said, you go and get some inspiration, and then I love to have just I think it's called a private Pinterest board, but it's a board that nobody else can see. It wouldn't matter if you had it out there for everybody else to see. They probably wouldn't know what you were doing anyway. But if you have Pinterest and you use it for business and you just wanted to keep it secret, you can create a secret board in Pinterest and save all this on there. So then once you have your inspiration, you want to make sure that you're starting with a pretty neutral color. And that means neutral is not far off of either the white or the black template. Because as I said before, you need to have that white or that black as a grounding mechanism for all of the other components in your brand. And so if you were to look at my branding, I use black. I like black. I like the luxury feel. I like the elegance of it. And it just works really well with my other colors. But a lot of people will utilize white, and that's fine too. So you could even use like a light pink, or even any of the primary colors, and just a couple shades off of white would be a great base color. You don't want it to be overpowering or too much color there, because that's going to become, it's like the canvas for your painting. So you create that canvas, whatever it might be. And then we're going to layer on other colors and images and things to go with it. So once you pick your neutral color, you'll want to write down either the hex code or the CMYK code. And if you don't know what those are, the hex code is pretty universal to use for any kind of design work. If you have a hex code, which is a # followed by 6 letters and numbers, you can use that hex code pretty much anywhere. So if you had a photo, for example, and you were wanting to find the hex codes for that, you can actually download. There is an extension for Google Chrome, and it's the eyedropper extension, and you can point to anything on the page and get the hex code, and also any of the other color codes that you would want by picking whatever color it is from the website. So it gives you the RGB code, and then I always use the hex code. There's a couple other codes in here, but if you have a hex code, your designer or whoever you're working with will be able to understand what color you want. So that being said, you'll want to start with your neutral palette, and then you want to choose 2 colors that are going to help make that neutral color pop and give it some life. And that being said, there are several ways you can do that. And I recommend a color wheel if you're new to this, because you can go and see kind of colors that work together that are either monochromatic, so they're all the same color, or they're complementary, so they are on opposite ends of the color wheel and will pair well together. Or you can pick analogous colors which are colors that are typically close to each other or right next to each other on the color wheel, on either side. So if you pick, for example, if you picked a blue, you would either have a darker blue or a more aqua color in the analogous color scheme. So, and then your last choice on the color wheel is to choose a triadic color, which is angular in a triangular shape, colors that are in that triangular area of the color wheel that go well together. So it all depends on whether you want, a monochromatic look, and that's all going to be a decision that you have to make for yourself. But these are all tools that you can go and gather, and you can find color wheels on Google. I mean, a color wheel is everywhere. You can go to the your local craft store and purchase a color wheel if you wanted to. I have one that I utilize a lot that I used to use for craft projects. I just have it and I pull it out sometimes, and you can easily just put together colors that you think will meld well as you're creating your brand. So pick two more neutral colors that are going to make that, or two more colors that are going to make your neutral color pop and that are complementary to them in some way. So if you're having trouble with this, if you're having trouble picking your colors from a photo, or you're not finding the color wheels to be helpful, there are some tools you can utilize to help you in this process. And one is Adobe Spark has created a suite of free products that are mobile apps that you can go and utilize and get some inspiration and some ideas. They have 3 different products. They are all free. You can get them, well, 3, let's see. 3 of them are available on Apple, and then only 1 of them is available on Google. But you can go and find and learn more about those at spark.adobe.com. And the first one is called Spark Post, and you can create graphics and all kinds of basically social media posts that you would want to put up really quickly, and you would need to do that with your mobile device. And then they have Spark Page, which I have not messed with this much, but I think it would be kind of an interesting arena to go look at, where you can actually create web pages in minutes and create those, upload them, and see how that would look. And then the last one, which is how I was first introduced to this product suite, is Spark Video. And you can create video stories in minutes, and it's actually really cool. So check those out, Adobe Spark. And again, you can find it at spark.adobe.com, and I'll stick that in the show notes, but that's a really great tool. And then also from Adobe, they have what's called Adobe Color CC. And this will help you put your color wheel together and choose colors and walk through color palettes and all of that kind of stuff. So you can also use that. And the last one that this is really kind of a cool place to go gather some inspiration and just see how your potential colors are being used. And it's called Design Inspiration. So kind of like design inspiration without the in. And I'll put the link to that site as well. But what's really cool about this site is you can actually go and search by color, and they give you the entire color spectrum, and you can go and choose what color arena you're interested in, and you can put up to 5 colors in there and just get all kinds of ideas and inspiration about how designers have utilized those colors. So all great places for you to go and get some fun and cool ideas about your colors. And then last but not least, when you're choosing your color palette, you need to choose one color that is going to incite action, so that you can utilize that, especially on your website and your landing pages and that sort of stuff, for places like the button. So you may have a certain color that you're utilizing in your color palette. So maybe it's a white, maybe it's a black, maybe it's green, but you want to have a color that feeds into that immediately when people see it, they recognize it and they know what to do next. And so whatever that action inciting color that would be. That would be for your buttons and for headlines and any calls to action, anything that you immediately want your potential customers to take action on. So that's really what I've got for you on color today. There's a lot here. There's a lot on color psychology. I could talk about color for a really long time, but I just wanted to kind of get your feet wet and give you some ideas to think about when it comes to creating color and choosing color and making sure that it really does appeal to your ideal client. Because again, if you are putting a lot of work and time into creating a brand that is memorable, and utilizing a color palette and creating consistency by utilizing the same colors, you want to make sure that it appeals, number one, to your ideal client, because if it doesn't, it isn't going to convert. And after all, isn't that the point of creating a brand in the first place? So that being said, I appreciate again for you tuning in today and for all the feedback that I'm getting from everybody. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you here next week. Next week, I am talking all about websites, and I am giving you the scoop on the best website platforms that are out there today for you and for your business, and how to choose which one is best for you. I will give you the breakdown on price. I will give you the breakdown on ease of use, and I will give you the breakdown on expandability. So tune in next week for that episode, and we're going to talk all about websites. In the meantime, have a great week. Enjoy your first week of February, and I will see you next week. Take care. This episode is being brought to you by my new master training, Pretty Doesn't Pay the Bills. If you've invested in all the aesthetics of building a brand, including picking the right fonts, picking the right colors, and creating that magazine-worthy website, yet you're still not seeing any additional traction, clients, or money in your business, this master training is built for you. In this master training, I will cover the 3 essentials that your brand is missing in order for you to gain the traction you need, get in front of the people you need to get in front of, turn them into paying customers, and last but not least, create the business that you love. To join me for this free training, please visit my website, elisaconnor.com/pretty. I'll see you inside, and I look forward to having the opportunity to share this training with you. Again, you can find the link to join the training at elisaconnor.com/pretty. Thanks for listening to the Feed You Podcast at www.elisaconnor.com/podcast.